Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Thousands of teachers protest against the UN relief agency in Gaza. Bahraini demonstrators demand the release of political prisoners. And humanitarian crisis worsening in besieged Sirte as NATO bombing continues. Mosaic, world news from the Middle East, begins now.
In the Gaza Strip, nearly 200 schools run by the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees were shut down in protest of the agency's suspension of Suhail al-Hindi, the head of the Arab Staff Union, for 3 months.
The agency justified its decision by pointing to al-Hindi's community work that was attended by the leaderships of Palestinian political factions. Meanwhile, some considered the decision to be the result of al-Hindi's activities with the Hamas movement.
Our correspondent, al-Dahdouh, attended the sit-in in Gaza.
لا تعليم في يوم المعلم العالمي.
There was no teaching on International Teachers' Day in the schools of the Relief and Works Agency for Refugees in Gaza. Schools were closed in response to the call of the agency's Arab Staff Union. The reason is the agency's suspension of the head of the union for 3 months under the pretext that he is carrying out activities that conflict with the agency's regulations. This means political work and meeting with politicians. So, thousands of teachers celebrated Teachers' Day in their own way. They held a strike and chanted against the decision they say is only one facet of the restriction of freedoms, the ideological oppression, labor injustice, and administrative corruption carried out by the agency against the employees.
After this day, we ask our colleagues not to sign any contract that compromises our homeland.
The sit-in is considered the first in the agency's history by its employees in Gaza. It is the culmination of a series of protest actions taken in the past 2 weeks.
It is the beginning of a very strong message to the agency's administration to reverse its unjust decision. For this reason, we have the right to escalate the actions of the entire union, so we can restore this right to its owner until the agency reverses its unjust action.
The UN agency denied all these claims and considered a drastic solution with the employees' union a requirement, seeing that an escalation will serve to destroy the lives of the refugees, who will be the only ones to lose from this action.
The next step is to reach an agreement and a drastic solution with the employees' union and to re-establish the trust in order to serve the people of the Gaza Strip. There is no substitute, and a pessimistic outlook will imply the complete destruction of the lives of 1.2 million Palestinian refugees in the Gaza Strip.
Schools were shut down, but the case remains open. And seeing that it is a sensitive case and is linked to the fate of hundreds of thousands of refugees, it needs to be solved and needs to remain an important and sensitive issue. Wael el-Dahdouh, Al Jazeera, Gaza, Palestine.
Protests demanding the downfall of President Bashar al-Assad continued in a number of areas in Syria, leading to more victims. Activists said 9 people were killed today by the gunfire of security institutions and the regime's Shabiha in various Syrian regions.
This scene does not differ from others repeatedly occurring in Syria. The deteriorating security situation, the massacre of citizens, as well as the arrests and harassment are all evidence of the actions of Assad's brigades against protesters demanding freedom. In turn, protests are still sweeping across many Syrian regions to reject what the people are forced to endure and to challenge the fear spread by the regime's shabiha. The Syrian cities of Aleppo, Hama, Deir ez-Zor, Idlib, the suburbs of Damascus, Douma, Daraya, Jabal al-Zawiya, and other regions witnessed protests condemning Bashar al-Assad's regime and rejecting the bloodshed of the Syrian people. Several Syrian cities also held funerals for victims who fell yesterday in various regions. Gunfire was heard in Al-Sama Square in Jisr al-Shagur during the funeral of one victim who died 2 days earlier. And as the youth tried to launch a march, Assad's brigades opened fire, dispersed the masses, and captured several residents of Jisr al-Shagur. The brigades also reinforced their presence in the area, sealed off cities' entrances, and barred citizens from exiting. Student protests were launched from Al-Sam al-Golan middle and primary schools, in addition to schools in Hama, Aleppo, Damascus, and Idlib, demanding international protection and the execution of President Bashar al-Assad. In Jable, the city's youth began their protest from Martyrs School. In Hama, university students challenged the shabiha of Bashar al-Assad's regime and organized a demonstration on campus. Meanwhile, heavy gunfire was heard in Al-Sahwa as 2 explosions shook parts of the town. In Latakia, dissidents posted a banner on the wall of the tax office in the Saliba district, congratulating Syrians for the National Council. For its part, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported the deaths of 3 soldiers and 1 civilian in clashes that erupted between gunmen in Idlib. Activists said 3 people died from random gunfire in the town of Talbisa in Homs province. At least 10 people were killed in confrontations in the final hours of the protests, demanding the departure of President Bashar al-Assad.
For nearly 7 months, the ongoing massacres against those demanding freedom in Syria have not concerned Russia or China. They used the veto at the Security Council and foiled the European draft resolution condemning the Syrian regime for its repression of protesters. Those who supported the plan condemned Russia and China's move and confirmed they will continue to support the protest movement demanding freedom. Meanwhile, German Foreign Minister Guido Westerwelle revealed that the European Union is preparing the 8th package of sanctions against Syria in order to increase pressure on Assad's regime. 7 Yemenis were killed and more than 22 others were wounded in heavy late-night shelling of various neighborhoods in the southwestern city of Taiz. This news came last night when Republican guards and special police units heavily shelled several neighborhoods in the country's southwestern city of Taiz. The residents issued an appeal for help to evacuate the victims stranded in the neighborhoods, shelled by Yemeni Republican guards and special police units. Meanwhile, national dialogue in Yemen has reached a stalemate amid the back-and-forth announcements from the authority and opposition over the possibility of reaching a deal in the coming days. Abdurrahman al-Shumari reports from Sana'a.
The failure of what has been referred to as last-minute efforts under UN auspices has brought the political situation in Yemen back to square one. The Vice President's confirmation that dialogue with the opposition is in progress and that a final agreement may be reached in the coming days was dismissed by the opposition. The opposition slammed the announcement as an attempt to mislead the international community to prevent the UN from referring the Yemeni crisis to the Security Council so that a political solution can be reached.
The conflicting announcements over the progress of talks, which the Vice President has confirmed and the opposition blocs have dismissed, are causing concern among the Yemeni public, especially amid the growing military entrenchment and security deterioration in the capital.
Amid the cloudy political situation in Yemen, fears are mounting over the volatile security situation on the ground. Security forces are reinforcing their troops and deploying additional military vehicles across the front lines, separating them from the 1st Armored Brigade, responsible for protecting the Yemeni youth holding sit-ins in Sana'a. Meanwhile, random raids are continuing in the capital amid raging confrontations reported on various fronts. Dozens of people are reportedly killed or injured on a daily basis.
The situation in Yemen is unclear amid pessimism and fear. The militarization of civil life seems to be taking shape in Yemen. Political and economic life has come to a complete halt, in addition to security, social, and political deterioration. Yemen is therefore bracing for a major crisis.
Amid the security and military breakdown, many are calling for adopting a serious international and regional position to prevent Yemen from slipping into an armed conflict that may have regrettable repercussions. Fearful, silent, and somber scenes dominate the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, and other cities following the collapse of power transfer talks between the political groups, especially amid growing efforts to place the Yemeni crisis under international protection, which may put the country on the verge of a new dangerous phase. Abdul Rahman Al-Shumari, Dubai TV, Sana'a.
وقد شهدت العديد من القرى والبلدات البحرينية.
A number of Bahraini villages and towns witnessed large night protests in the framework of the Week of Freedom for the Free Bahrainis in solidarity with the detainees in regime prisons. Regime forces raided Al-Iraqiya region and quelled a peaceful demonstration with sound bombs and tear gas. Disclosing the brutal methods of torture, head of the Bahrain Nursing Society, Dr. Rula Al-Safar, confirmed that she was beaten with electric sticks and forbidden to sleep during her detention.
These protesters have not lowered their voices despite the repressive measures taken by the Bahraini authorities against them since February. Masses of protesters participated in the popular demonstrations as part of the Week of Freedom for Free Bahrainis in solidarity with the detainees. Night marches inundated the roads and streets on a number of Bahraini regions and villages to express rage at the regime's arbitrary measures and to demand its downfall. From the villages of Al-Musalla, Iskan, and Jad Hafs to Al-Dair, protesters loudly shouted their condemnation of the ongoing judicial rulings, demanded the release of political prisoners, and affirmed that undermining their dignity is a line that should not be crossed. The response to these voices demanding their rights was a roar of gunfire. The regime's forces have only dealt with the protesters with gunfire and by force. However, these acts of violence did not reduce the protesters' determination, nor did it prevent them from continuing their peaceful demonstrations and affirming their insistence on the ouster of the regime and the departure of Saudi occupation forces from their country. In the village of Karbabad, residents marched under the slogan, "Free despite the chains," in solidarity with the detainees in Al-Qatif in eastern Saudi Arabia. In the context of the occasionally revealed methods of torture used on detainees in Bahraini prisons, head of the Bahrain Nursing Society, Dr. Rula Al-Safar, confirmed that she was tortured with electric shocks and deprived of sleep when she was detained in the regime's prison. On the eve of the military court's sentencing of al-Safar to 15 years in prison, she said in a newspaper interview that among the female detainees were 2 girls no more than 16 years old who were threatened with assault. She asserted that several female detainees were assaulted and were afraid of being exposed. Al-Safar denied all allegations against the medics, indicating that the confessions were given under torture and threats.
Fresh demonstrations have been held in Saudi Arabia against military intervention in neighboring Bahrain. Protesters in Qatif and Al-Wamiya also called for an end to the Saudi crackdown on dissidents and demanded the release of political prisoners. New footage posted on the internet showed the deployment of Saudi troops to the oil-rich Al-Wamiya to crush anti-regime protesters. Similar protests turned violent in the past few days following attacks by Saudi security forces. Clashes erupted after security forces opened fire to disperse hundreds of protesters chanting against Riyadh's policies. Several protesters, including women, were injured in the clashes. The International Red Cross team present in the Libyan city of Sirte has sounded the alarm bells about the humanitarian crisis that has been brought on by the long siege and the intense NATO bombing. This is while the fighting between Gaddafi loyalists and the revolutionaries over the control of the city continues.
We took a ride with one of the main militias, which are currently playing a key role in the siege of Sirte.
Misrata revolutionaries have surrounded Sirte and have allowed the families of the city to leave safely. The ceasefire ended after the revolutionaries entered east of the city. The revolutionaries have also surrounded Gaddafi forces around the main hospital in Sirte. We expect Sirte to be freed within a few days.
Mustafa drove us south of Sirte in order to reach the eastern part of the city. On the eastern front line, the revolutionaries edged closer to the capture of the city. Press TV were one of the first to enter eastern Sirte, which was captured within hours of our arrival. This is Abu Hadi, south of Sirte. The revolutionaries have managed to route around Sirte in order to get to the eastern side by driving 30 kilometers south of the city in order to reach the eastern side. And as you can see, they have based themselves here to protect the route from the west to the east of the city and to be able to surround the city from 3 sides. Recently, many Sirte residents fled the city, but some could not manage to find a way out. The International Red Cross had entered Sirte in order to provide for those who remained there. What they had witnessed was a humanitarian crisis brought on by the siege and the NATO bombing of the city. Hisham Khadrawi was the head of the team that recently entered the city to provide medical aid to its citizens.
We witnessed that the medical situation is dire. There is a clear need of medical items.
Some of the Sirte residents were treated in makeshift hospitals, such as this one, which is 50 kilometers west of Sirte. The more serious injuries and ailments were diverted to the main hospital in Misrata. Doctors in the hospital had told Press TV that this child's family of 7 members had been killed by a bomb that was attached to the car before leaving the city. His mother now lies in intensive care. Dr. Muhammad Salama was one of the many doctors that dealt with the emergency admittance to the hospital.
The situation in Sirte is very bad. There is no water, no electricity, so they drink from dirty water.
As the siege of Sirte continues, the bombardments of the revolutionaries and NATO resumes. Libyan revolutionary commanders say that they will maintain the siege and continue to tighten its grip around the city until the Gaddafi forces there surrender. They say they are in no hurry.
Other news today, at least a partial walkout by the nation's medical residents will almost certainly take place tomorrow morning, as several groups have rejected a compromise appeal from Prime Minister Netanyahu. We get more now on the situation in the healthcare sector from IBA's Aaron Viner.
The long-delayed intervention of Prime Minister Netanyahu in the medical residents' impending strike failed to yield successful results. Following 2 hours of discussions at his Jerusalem office yesterday with the young physicians, Israel Medical Authority officials, Finance Minister Yuval Steinitz, and the Treasury's wage director Ilan Levine, the Prime Minister asked the residents to delay their walkout until after the Sukkot holiday to provide him with sufficient time to examine their demands. Saying that the meeting was not productive, residents at 5 hospitals today voted by unanimous decision to proceed with their resignations tomorrow. Young physicians from Israel's largest hospital, Tel HaShomer's Sheba Medical Center, Tel Aviv's Ichilov, Cholon's Wolfson Medical Center, Rambam and Bnei Zion hospitals in Haifa say that despite Netanyahu's claims that the crisis can be solved, they so far haven't received any offers and will implement their strike until they are given specific proposals in writing. Deputy Health Minister Yaakov Litzman attended discussions with Netanyahu, who also serves as the Minister of Health, on means to prevent the 734 residents and specialists from leaving their positions. IMA Chairman Dr. Leonid Edelman negotiated an end to the longest doctor strike in the nation's history 1 month ago in an historic agreement that the residents maintain fails to meet their own needs. Edelman said that during yesterday's intensive meetings, Netanyahu listened to the residents' demands and suggested several options for improved working conditions, but failed to provide tangible solutions. The National Labor Court is due to hold another session tomorrow morning in a further bid to prevent what is expected to be a catastrophic strike to the nation's health sector. This is Aaron Viner for IBA News.
And staying with the crisis in the health sector, a short time ago, IBA's Efrat Batat asked Dr. Eliaz Miller from Tel Aviv's Ichilov Hospital why residents are determined to go ahead with their resignations despite the Prime Minister's request that they delay them temporarily.
Everybody agrees that the solution for this problem is to shorten the length of the agreement, is to give further funds for doctor salaries. These are 2 very simple decisions to take, very simple actions to take. Actually, shortening the agreement length should not cost this much. So the answers are quite simple.
Iran and Turkey's continued shelling of the border areas of Iraq's Kurdistan region has led to the displacement of thousands of residents.
The situation prompted the International Committee of the Red Cross to take actions to help the refugees and to demand reaching a settlement agreement that will end the shelling and airstrikes.
The figures documenting the outcome of the continuous 4-month-long shelling are almost final. 20 civilians were martyred and 6 were wounded. 1,000 families were displaced from their residences. In addition, severe losses were inflicted on the citizens' properties, and a number of villages were emptied of their residents who fled to safer areas.
20 were martyred, 6 were wounded. Over 1,000 families were displaced and escaped their homes. In addition, there have been financial and psychological losses.
As of now, there has been no compensation for the victims and refugees who were forced to flee their residences. Their houses were destroyed and their properties ruined. Hundreds of displaced families stayed by the roadside, in valleys, and other places that are safe from the shelling. They settled for living in tents as the cruel and freezing winter approaches.
We abandoned all our cattle, property, and crops in fear of the shelling and the Turkish warplanes hovering over our villages.
وقد قامت الحكومتان الإيرانية والتركية بقصف هذه
المناطق. The Iranian and Turkish governments shelled these regions under the pretext of the existence of the Kurdistan Workers' Party and the Party of Free Life of Kurdistan's forces. However, local officials assert that no forces affiliated with these two parties exist in the region.
لهذين الحزبين ولا مقرات تابعة لهما.
المقاتلين حزب العمال الكردستاني وحزب الحياة.
The fighters from the Kurdistan Workers' Party and the Party of Free Life of Kurdistan are spread throughout the border regions between Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. These regions are considered geographically significant and very difficult to cross.
خفت وتيرة القصف من قبل المدفعية الإيرانية الثقيلة.
The heavy artillery shelling by Iran has become less intense, but the Turkish airstrikes are still ongoing, albeit sporadically, in the region of Shuman and its surrounding villages. Cameron Muhammad, Al-Iraqiya, Shuman.
Al-Iraqiya, Shuman.
The Kurdistan Workers' Party, PKK, said it reached an agreement with the Iranian government to stop the fighting between the two sides in exchange for halting the bombing on the border regions of Iraq's Kurdistan. PKK Foreign Relations spokesman Ahmed Deniz asserted that the battles between the joint forces of PJAK and PKK and the Iranian forces will be halted according to the agreement. Deniz added that the agreement was reached at the end of September and that it includes withdrawal of PJAK fighters from border regions. He ruled out the possibility of new battles erupting between PKK and Iranian forces, saying that such a situation would harm both sides. At the same time, he commended the government of the Iraqi Kurdistan region for the positive position it took on recent incidents.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Wincote Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs, programs which connect you to the world.